When we come back, we are going to crunch the numbers with Hollywood filmmakers.
Get the skinny on the most bankable star. You're watching World News Now.
And in Minnesota, Republican Norm Coleman, who was in a legal fight with Al Franken over who won the election for Senate, said, "God wants me to serve." That's what he said. God wants me to serve. Now, here's my question. How bad a candidate are you when you can't win an election when you have the creator of the universe on your side, okay? I mean, even God is going, "Look, Norm, I created heaven and earth. You're not giving me much to work with."
I sort of forgot that whole issue has still not been resolved. It's been
kind of
going
fell
on
to the wayside with all the other
forever.
drama we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So we were talking about it before we went to break, the most bankable stars. Who are they?
Yeah.
Before I tell you who topped the list, I'll tell you what the criteria was. It was from Forbes, and they basically look at who can bring in the most financing for a project, who has the most box office success, and who appeals to the biggest audience.
Pete, who would you guess? Who's the most bankable star in Hollywood? Greta Garbo? No.
It is Will Smith, which, if you think about it, isn't really that much of a surprise.
No, it's not.
They're talking, in talking about how he appeals to different audiences, they talk a lot about his ability to play so many different roles. And if you think about it, he went from Ali to 7 Pounds to The Pursuit of Happiness. So the general consensus is that he can really play in all the worlds.
Almost
so
everything he's in is a huge hit.
yeah, it certainly is. And everything he does, you want to see because he's such a talented actor. Other people on the list, Johnny Depp, Leonardo DiCaprio, Angelina Jolie, and Brad Pitt. And then, interestingly enough, it talks about how a lot of the people are over 35. So
oh, wow.
Clint Eastwood was number 20. So a lot of these rich actors are in the older age set.
Harrison Ford was.
It doesn't say if he was on the list.
He's had some bad movies
what was his
lately.
latest movie? I can't think.
I don't even remember.
Yeah.
So that doesn't bode well. Hey, big news at Grey's Anatomy. There are rumors that Katherine Heigl and T.R. Knight could be leaving the show. There's a new report that quotes their fellow cast member James Pickens as basically saying they're as good as gone from the show. And this doesn't come as a surprise to some people because you may remember that Heigl dissed this show last year, basically removing herself from Emmy consideration because she said the material wasn't good enough to be considered for an Emmy. And T.R. Knight supposedly is saying that he's unhappy because he's not getting enough screen time. So these two big stars of that show could be leaving. I can tell you're brokenhearted about it.
I was going to say, well, I'm sure that means both of them will probably be in more movies. It always seems like people
the
go
hope.
from, yeah.
But remember when David Caruso did that on NYPD Blue, and then he disappeared for like a decade. So it's a big gamble.
Yeah,
Be careful.
it is a big gamble. Okay, so now the developing story of Chris Brown and Rihanna. It's such a sad story, and by now you've certainly heard about their allegations that he may have assaulted her.
Yeah.
Now Kanye West is speaking out. He says he went on tour with Rihanna at one point. He says he thinks of her as a baby sis because he thinks that at one point she could be the greatest female artist in the world, and I guess that makes her somehow related to him. He says he's completely devastated. He said all this while talking to Ryan Seacrest, but the plot is sort of thickening. We're also now hearing from Chris Brown's former stepfather, who Chris Brown has said was actually responsible for abusing his own mother. So in other words, the stepfather who abused Chris Brown's mother is now saying he's not really surprised by all of this, and Chris Brown is losing endorsements left and right. We talked about Doublemint yesterday. Now the Got Milk campaign is sort of saying we don't really want him anymore.
I'm sure glad we know what Kanye West thinks about all this.
It's important to know, isn't it?
More news coming up.